All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we are going to talk about Russell Wilson and his meetings. Now, he did already meet with the Browns, there was no deal. And now he is going to meet with the Giants today. Now, just because he didn't, come away with an agreement with the Browns, with his meeting, doesn't mean that they can't revisit and, come to terms. So, yeah, with all the Aaron Rodgers stuff going on and the pictures of him, walking on the beach, and people are making just such a big deal about that. It's whatever, like, but everybody has their opinion. I get it. So with all of that going on one side, you got Russell Wilson who's saying, you know what, I'm not waiting for this guy to sign with someone. I am going to, be aggressive and see what's out there for me, so I can find my next team. And as he should. You don't need to wait for anybody. So he visited with the Browns. He's visiting with the Giants now. Last year, he visited with the Giants, and then he signed with the Steelers. But yeah, I don't think the Steelers. I don't think it's going to happen with the Steelers and Russ. I think the Steelers they have they kind of screwed themselves a little bit because you bench Justin Fields for Russell Wilson last season. And then the offseason comes around. Now you're trying to sign Fields over Russ, and it seems like you kind of closed the door on Russ. And then Justin Fields is saying to himself, well, you guys benched me. I'm going to go to a team where I know I'm definitely going to be the starter. They're going to commit to me. He goes to the Jets, and now Russ is saying, well, you guys prioritize signing Fields over me. Now I'm going to go to a different team. So now, if Rodgers decides, hey, I'm not going to the Steelers either, what are the Steelers going to do at quarterback? Jameis Winston? Honestly, if I'm a Steelers fan, if I'm a Giant fan, if I don't get Russell Wilson and I don't get Aaron Rodgers, Jameis Winston should be my number 3 choice. And you could make the argument he should be the number 2 choice over Russ, because I honestly would take Jameis over Russ if I'm a Giant fan. If I have a young quarterback waiting, and maybe it's not the best decision to have Jameis be the mentor because of the interceptions, but Jameis has the ability to go out there and throw for 400 yards in a game, 4 touchdowns. But the problem is he's going to throw 4 interceptions, and we saw that against the Broncos last year in that high scoring game where I think he had 500 yards passing, but he had 2 pick sixes in the game. And you might be saying, well, what about Aaron Rodgers? Look, I do think now I don't think Russ is like completely cooked. I think Russ can still play a little bit. The problem is he's a one-trick pony, right? He's not the same Russ that he was in Seattle. He just throws those moon balls. And then you saw what happened towards the end of the season. The Steelers lost 5 straight games. With the Jets, I think if we're in the right situation, I think Aaron Rodgers can show you that he could still play at, an above average level. In the right situation. But if he goes to the Giants, might not work out. But back to Russ, though. I think Russ would be a good bridge. Now, like I said, I would take Jameis just for the chance to see a quarterback throw for 400 yards and 3 touchdowns and whatever. But just to make things fun, make things interesting. But I do think Russ would be okay for just 1 year. Now, where should he go? Should he go to Cleveland or should he go to the Giants? If those are his 2 options. What's the better option? Well, both teams finished in last place in their respective divisions last season. If Russ stays within the AFC North, he does have to compete with Kenny Pickett. We do have to bring that in. Old Steelers quarterback just won the Super Bowl with the Eagles, took some snaps in that Super Bowl. You will have to compete with Kenny Pickett. Now, I think Russ is better than Kenny Pickett, even though it's not saying much. Kenny Pickett did look decent in the game against Dallas. in the regular season. The Eagles are running the tush push with him, but you know what? Anybody could look good with the Eagles. Then you saw what Tanner McKee did after Kenny Pickett got hurt. But Russ is going to have to compete with Kenny Pickett, and I would imagine that Russ would beat Kenny Pickett out for the job. And then with the Giants, Russ would definitely be the starter. There's no competition. Tommy DeVito and Russ are not competing to be starters. Russell Wilson will be the starter. So you got to look at that. But if you look at the rosters, I mean, I guess you'd probably give the edge to the Browns, right? Because they got Myles Garrett, and they're a team that they won 11 games a couple of years ago. They just didn't get good quarterback play last year. So you figure if Russ could play decent, the Browns could definitely win more than 3 games. Deshaun Watson was horrible before he got hurt. And then Jameis, he beat the Ravens, which I was in attendance for. But other than that, they did not do that much winning. I think Russ could definitely win more games for the Browns. And Jerry Jeudy's there. There's some familiarity there. I don't know what they're going to do at running back. Nick Chubb is a free agent. He's not coming back, it looks like. They got a good tight end in David Njoku. And Russ threw, some touchdowns to Pat Freiermuth. They did a nice rapport. So I feel like you'd probably give the edge to the Browns. But look, I know we spend a lot of time trashing the Giants, but the Giants have a good defense on paper. And the moves that they've made this offseason to strengthen the secondary, and then, you added Chauncey Goldston to that defensive line with Dexter Lawrence and Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau. You got a couple of nice linebackers. The defense is not bad. It's the offense that really needs some work. And Russell Wilson will be thrown to Malik Neighbors. And they re-signed Darius Slayton. So, yeah, he'd be throwing moonballs to Darius Slayton. And the Giants have a decent running game with Tyrone Tracy. Tyrone Tracy showed some promise last year. So, the Giants probably got to add to that running back room. But, I think that's an encouraging sign with Tracy, 5th-round pick. And again, the offensive line, both offensive lines have dealt with injuries over the last couple of years. And before the Giants' before Andrew Thomas got hurt, the offensive line was decent. And you'll be paired up with Brian Daboll, an offensive-minded head coach. And that'd be an interesting relationship. Even if the Giants bring in Rodgers, both relationships will be interesting. Rodgers with Brian Daboll or Russ with Brian Daboll. Will we see Brian Daboll yelling at Russ on the sidelines like Sean Payton was? Are we going to see that? So, yeah. But the other thing, too, is, like I said, both teams finished in last place. They play in loaded divisions. You're either going to play in the same division you played in last year with Lamar Jackson, you'd be playing against the Steelers, you'd be playing against Joe Burrow, or you're playing against the Super Bowl champions, the team that was the runner-up to the Eagles in the NFC, and the Dallas Cowboys, who own the Giants. So it's pick your poison, basically. So I guess, if I'm Russ, which is the better roster? Maybe you lean towards the Browns. But you could also say you have to play in New York. Could be a good opportunity. Choosing Cleveland over New York, imagine that. But that's kind of where we're at right now. Maybe there's another team out there that Russ could visit. The Tennessee Titans. But they could be looking to take Cam Ward. So, yeah, I don't really know. Both of these teams are not good. But, like I said, the Browns, they won 11 games a couple years ago. A lot of the guys that they had on that team are still on this team. And Myles Garrett is back. So, in terms of the team, maybe you go with the Browns. But maybe Russ is trying to play in New York. And it makes sense because last year he visited the Giants and Daniel Jones was going to be the starter. And when he saw Pittsburgh was knocking, he went there. So I think Russell Wilson is ultimately going to end up with the Giants. I had him going to Vegas with Pete Carroll, but they went and traded for Geno and that threw that out the window. So now I think we could see him going to the Giants. I think that's going to happen. That's my opinion. And then, again, we're still waiting on Aaron Rodgers. Joe Flacco's out there. Maybe the Browns bring back Joe Flacco. You know what? That's what they should do. Bring back Joe Flacco because you had success with him. It was a mistake to let him walk. Now, Flacco was good in the 5-6 games that he played in, but, over the course of a whole season, yeah, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. And apparently if the Giants miss out on Russ and Aaron Rodgers, Flacco's their next option. I don't see it. Now, Flacco is a mentor to a young quarterback. Yeah, I'll take it. But, Joe Flacco starting for my team in, 2025. Yeah, I don't know. But let me know what you guys think, though, about the Russell Wilson stuff. Where do you think you should go? Should you sign with the Browns or should you sign with the Giants if it comes down to those two options? Because it seems like Pittsburgh, it's not going to happen. Because what I think is going to happen is Rodgers is either going to go to the Steelers, and then you hear the Vikings could make an offer to him. Vikings would be the best spot for him because they have the best roster. You got the Vikings, the Steelers, and then the Giants. And I think Russ is going to end up on the Giants. That's what I think. But let me know what you guys think about all that. So we're going to take our next break, and then when we come back, we'll talk some MLB stuff. We'll talk about the Dodgers and the Cubs playing in the Tokyo series. Rafael Devers, we'll talk about him, and some stuff regarding the Braves and their star players coming back, some of their star players coming back from injury. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast.